Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. On this week's episode of Sanding with Dustin, we're gonna sand some stuff because that's all we ever do here. We just sand things. Jokes aside, that's one thing that I've been thinking about is I don't want this content to get too boring. So if I've done something before or whatnot, I'm not gonna kind of try to beat in the point and just make the content that, me sanding thing. Because of that though, I may get to steps or phases where I'm not able to produce a lot of content because most of the time I'm just sanding stuff. I think that's going to be the case as we get through the bodywork phase of this build, but that's what it is. And it's just kind of, I guess, an effort on my part to keep things fresh and entertaining. Okay, so we're back on the other side of this bumper here, the side that last time I mentioned was not quite, was one step behind the right-hand side. We're on the left-hand side. I mentioned the last time that that was one step behind the right-hand side. It was still low when you last saw it, so I'm just gonna kind of fill that low spot, hit it with the plastic spreader, then I'm gonna go over to the other side, and as I mentioned last time, I was gonna put just kind of one good, tight, final coat on there, and we'll sand that flush and call it good. I guess this allows me to kind of do some housekeeping on some things I wanted to talk about and whatnot. I know when we kind of began this journey, I mentioned I was gonna be releasing a video every Thursday, and I have deviated from that. Just the reason being, it's just hard to produce, you know, a video every single week. You know, when you may have an internet issue one day, or have to record a video a second time because you forgot to plug in your microphone. But that's been the case. I'm gonna kind of try to work over, I guess, the next month to get back on track in doing that. But give me some time. I'll continue to try to post on my Instagram stories when I do have new content up. That way, if you follow me there at Dustin Denton, you can be notified that way. I guess that's also my cue to tell you to subscribe and turn on notifications, because YouTube will notify you if you have done that. Okay, I think we've got this thing pretty good. I'm gonna just kind of step this out a little bit more and then go on to the other side. Put one pass right in the middle. Hopefully we have enough material and we're not low still. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the key overarching concept to doing bodywork, is you're gonna have highs, you're gonna have lows, but in the end, you just need everything to even out. That looks good. Turn this around so you can see. And here we're just gonna put just a nice tight coat. I've actually gone and sanded the surface with 80 grit to make it, to kind of take out some of the deeper scratches that were in there. You see these metal spreaders, it really am able to control thickness. Okay. So with these metal spreaders, you can see that I'm really a lot better ability to control the thickness at which I'm applying this material. Like I said, just putting down nice, tight, almost like a skim coat. A little bit more. And the main purpose in doing this, really more than anything, because the surface is already pretty flush, The main reason I'm doing this is to kind of fill some of these scratches in the surrounding plastic. And that's why I'm putting it around there, put a little bit more inside here. Now we're gonna let that dry. Okay, so I got this repair area sanded to the point where I think I'm satisfied with it. I'm gonna call it good. I basically sanded it with 80, got the rough shape of it, and then came back and finished everything out with 150 grit. So I used the 150 to get rid of all the 80 grit scratches, but I also used it to finish out the body work. And at this point, I think I actually have the repair slightly low compared to the bumper, but that's kind of the objective here, because if the repair area is high, when you put your primer on it, the repair material is going to come through right away. Whereas if you kind of have a little bit of a void to fill, the primer will do that, and then you're able to sand it flat when you block the primer out. Because the primer is going to be blocked here and possibly reprimed again, depending on how that comes out. Also, you have to take into consideration when you're sanding this thing with 80 grit, the texture is just really rough and it's really hard to feel what's going on. And that's a key part to doing a repair or any type of body work, is to constantly just be feeling what's going on. What do you feel? Do you feel a high spot? Do you feel a low spot? Do you need to add material? Do you need to take material away? And when you start sanding with 150, it gets smooth, and just the kind of tactile perception you're able to utilize changes when you work with a finer grit. So a 150 also helped in that sense. Something to keep in mind too is that this material right here, this repair material, is softer than this bumper. So when you're sanding on a transition like right here, you're removing material from here, but not proportionally the same amount of material from the bumper area itself. And so when you cover everything with a layer of primer, you have a uniform material on either side of these transitions, because they're going to be covered in primer, and so you're able to sand that material flat. Come around to the other side. You can see kind of the same thing going on, so both sides are done here. Now what I have left to do is sand out these fog light recesses, what I can of the grill. I actually have some small, if you can see them, repairs to make where the sander took away some material, so I'm gonna have to add some of that bumper repair material and get those all looking uniform. Okay, so that brings me to what I wanted to talk about next. When I sand the inner area, I'm gonna sand what I can with this 3-inch DA sander. I also have a 2-inch pad for it that I will utilize as well. But buying 3-inch DA paper, that stuff's expensive. And so this is the technique that I've developed, is I take the 6-inch paper, I put one on there, use a pair of scissors. Actually, I'm going to center this thing out a little bit better. Give myself a little bit more room. And I utilize a cheap pair of scissors. When you're cutting sandpaper, it will destroy your scissors, so don't use the best pair of scissors you have. And then I'll just trim this Velcro paper, or hook and loop paper, I guess is the more non-brand specific terminology. So I'll trim this paper, and boom, 3-inch DA paper. And so from one 6-inch DA paper, I'll be able to get 3 sanding discs out of this. So I'm gonna start sanding that now, and I'll check back in with you when I'm done. So I got these fog light recesses sanded up the best I can with the 60 grit. You see, you was able to get them stripped down to plastic for the most part. I wasn't able to get all of the primer off the bumper, but this will do. So I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up some more of this Hercules sanding paper. Really happy with the stuff so far. And 180 grit. Now I'm going to go over the whole bumper using the DA with the interface pad, and we're going to get this thing all worked down to 180, and then it should be pretty close to being ready for primer. Alright, so this is how the bumper looks after finishing it out with 180. You can see it's a lot smoother. So if we get in close, you can see it doesn't have the texture that it used to. I'm pretty happy with this thing. I did have a little mishap with my mini DA, and the pad exploded because it's just extremely old and the foam was breaking down on it. So I'm gonna have to replace that to finish prepping the area inside the grill. So for the most part, this bumper is pretty much ready for primer, and you're not going to see it again until it's time for me to prime it. One may ask, like, why would you put so much time into overhauling a bumper? Why don't you just go buy a new one or find one that's in better condition? And really what this comes down to is there's different case scenarios for things you may encounter when it comes to car parts and whatnot. This specific bumper, the Dolphin 97 Del Sol bumper, really was never made by aftermarket by any companies, so that's not an option. And what you do have is just this limited availability of OEM bumpers, and they're not sold brand new anymore. So sometimes you just have to deal with what you have. And honestly, I think I was just on eBay the other day and saw one of these going for $2,000 plus like $300 something for shipping. So in this particular instance, it is worth sanding this thing for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, however long it's going to take to get it ready for paint. But otherwise, that's just how I wanted to close things out today. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Next time, we won't be working on this bumper. We're going to be working on something different. Next time, we won't be working on this bumper. We're going to be doing a few other projects, and I'll catch you then. Thanks.